I'll be facilitating this conference, and if you would allow me, I would like to start with a slight personal note. Close the glass loop, it refers to this process where a material that has been placed on the market is then reused for the exact same purpose for which it was placed on the market. Okay? Closing the glass loop, bringing a container back into a container through a recycling process. And we talk about close the glass loop, but I just wanted to say that it's not a closed process, actually. It's a very open process. And when we started Close the Glass Loop back in June 2020, it's been a few years already now, it was always the intention to have it as an open process. We wanted to make sure that everyone in the glass packaging value chain was involved, and the European partnership itself brings together 14 European associations representing the whole glass packaging value chain. But importantly as well, in June 2020, we kicked off the partnership with 11 national platforms. Platforms that were active in 11 different countries, with operators really trying to increase and improve the glass collection and recycling processes. We all had an objective to reach 90% glass collection for recycling by 2030, and we knew we had to work with the local, national level to achieve that. We started with 11 national platforms, and now, 4 years later, we're beginning to see the movement where many other countries that weren't, let's say, at the kickoff are beginning to come together and raise the bar, actually, because if we're going to work on European level in an isolated bubble, it's never going to happen. And on a personal level, I always had this dream that this specific event was going to happen in Romania. And I'm really delighted that it's actually happening, that we're making it happen, and I hope that this is the start of a very important process for all of you here in Romania, and so I'm really looking forward to this discussion. So that was me on a personal level, slightly, general close the glass loop level as well. I'll take you through the agenda, but I would first like to hand over to Constantin Stere, who is the chairman of Green Group, also to say a few welcome words. Please, Constantin.
Thank you, Jean-Paul. A warm welcome to all our guests here, and actually they are not only guests, but they are stakeholders, because all of us have something in common with glass and with the life of glass. I think that it's a very important event, since we succeed to move this discussion from Brussels in Eastern Europe, and this says a lot about the fact this platform is open to whole Europe, and it's looking forward to see development with the high results here in Romania and surrounding countries as well. You'll hear during the conference what are the ambitions, where we like to reach. I think Romania has a long trip to go there, but I think it's the right time to talk about it and to hit the road. I will stop here because I will be in a third panel. Thank you, Jean-Paul. And now, I will switch to Romanian. O să dăm cuvântul pe rând celor doi invitați oficiali și o să încep cu domnul ministru Mircea Fechet. Domnule ministru.
Bună dimineața tuturor. Okay. Good morning, everybody. Mr. Zamov is telling me that we can save some time and speak in English, not to waste time with the translation. But anyway, welcome here, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Zamov, for the invitation to this wonderful event. Usually, when we talk about recycling or when we talk about waste management, about glass or any other type of materials, I only see familiar faces. There are the same people dealing with the same problems for so many years, and usually with the same problems and with the same people and with the same solutions, you get the same numbers. And if usually in Brussels they are speaking about the low performance of Romania when we talk about separate collection or recycling, I'm so glad to see here today in this room so many people who know exactly what they are doing, so many people from outside Romania that came here, and I can say proudly that today Romania is being put on the map of the countries where things are really happening, and I would like to thank Mr. Damov for the effort of bringing so many people here today. Thank you, Mr. Damov. You are doing a really wonderful job. He already presented me a lot of the international participants. I had the honor to meet representatives of great companies who are dealing with recycling of glass in Europe mostly. And I would like firstly to speak about a sole project of mine that I'm sure everybody heard about it here in Romania. I would like to speak about the deposit return system, because what we are trying to do with this system is to move away from the really low numbers that we are having right now. Because in Romania we are only collecting about 13% of the waste that we are producing, the municipal waste, and what we are hoping to achieve with this deposit return system is to shift away from these really bad numbers to the performance that the DRS is providing in the other countries in Europe where it's already been implemented. So what we are hoping for is that after the third year to have more than 90% of the beverage containers that are being part of the DRS to be collected in our system. So it's a lot of progress that we are waiting for, but in the same time we understand completely that a lot of changes will be made in Romania by the system. And not only the life of the citizens will change, because now when you go to the grocery shop or to the supermarket, you don't go with an empty bag anymore. You have to go with some empty bottles or PETs or aluminum containers. But it will change the face of the industry. I'm sure that the deposit return system will mean in the same time more jobs, more investments, more technology, because speaking about the glass itself, and I understand that the glass is the only thing we are talking about today. We are focusing on the glass. But we will deal in Romania with hundreds of thousands of tons of glass that we will have to manage. And this only means new investments. This could only mean investing in new capacities. Because I went to a really big recycler in Romania and I asked them how many tons of these 400 and something thousand tons have you recycled in Romania? And unfortunately, he said that almost none of the glass from Romania entered his recycling facility. And then I asked, where is the glass? What are we doing in the glass? And I asked my colleagues from the national environmental fund, who are checking the companies and who are checking the weight reps and who make these procedures each year. And I asked them, where is the glass? Because it's not going into Romanian's economy. And what they said was shocking. He said, Minister, in 2023, last year, because we checked a part of the contracts that were signed. They said that 135,000 tons of glass was put into bricks or other types of recycling that I do not call recycling. And what I think it should happen is that every kilo of glass from DRS and not only should enter the recycling companies, because that will provide jobs, but that will also provide a better environment. You spend half of the energy when you are melting glass than you are when you are melting raw materials. So what I'm hoping for is that the next year, no matter who the minister will be, when he will ask the National Environmental Fund employees, how many tons of glass did you find that it was recycled in Romania? They will say, Minister, they recycled everything. All the glass from the DRS and not only went into the recycling facilities. If we are talking about glass, and I'm always trying to be on the positive side of the situation, I'm really optimistic. I see that the DRS is getting stronger and stronger each day. I have people that are telling me that there is a record almost every week. So we have 18 million containers that were being collected in February. I cannot wait to see the numbers in March, but what I'm hoping for is that we pass the 2 million containers per day limit. So I try to stay really close with my colleagues from Returo. I would like to take this opportunity to thank them for the hard job they are doing each day, because Returo is growing bigger and bigger, the DRS is growing bigger and bigger each day. So it's a lot of work that they are doing every day, and I would like to thank them. So I will conclude, because I'm hoping to be able to stay enough. We have this governmental meeting at 11 o'clock, but I'm waiting to see the other people's opinions. I close my remarks by saying that I think that when you drink a beverage from a glass container, I think it tastes better than the other types of containers. I'm a full supporter of glass. I'm a full supporter of reusing glass containers, and the next big thing in Romania, after we will settle the DRS on its track, it will be reusing the glass containers, standardizing the glass containers. So I cannot wait to sit on the same table with the industry who's raising their eyebrows right now when they are listening to me. But I hear a lot, and I know how important is the dialogue with the industry, and every decision we are taking in Romania, we only take it after we have a lot of consultation and after we know for sure that we are not damaging the economy. So thank you. I wish you a very fruitful meeting here in Bucharest, in this wonderful building, and I cannot wait to be told by Mr. Ramon what were the conclusions of the discussions today. Thank you.
În continuare, se dă cuvântul domnului senator Daniel Cătălin Zanfir, care de fapt este și gazda noastră. El a făcut ca totul să fie posibil în această sală, e prea puțin spus sală, și o să aflăm și opinia economică a industriei. Domnule senator?
Mulțumesc mult, domnule președinte. Vreau să vă spun de la bun început că atunci când am primit solicitarea să organizăm împreună Comisia Economică, Industrie și Servicii a Senatului și Coaliția pentru Economie Circulară acest eveniment, am răspuns cu promptitudine și pentru faptul că sunt unul dintre susținătorii fervenți ai industriei de reciclare în general. Cred cu tărie că industria de reciclare poate fi un motor în orice economie, cu atât mai mult cu cât, iată, este a doua industrie după industria de IT, cu potențial de dezvoltare. Sigur, în particular, vorbind aici de reciclarea sticlei, aici un mod aparte de a discuta despre această materie primă, pentru că, dincolo de faptul că este un material nobil, nu sticla nu e folosită doar ca ambalaj și privită ulterior ca un material reciclabil, sticla, iată, a căpătat valențe remarcabile și este folosită în multe industrii, unele dintre ele chiar de lux. Ca atare, cred că reciclarea sticlei merită să aibă un loc aparte și dacă o privim din punct de vedere al economiilor pe care le facem atunci când reciclăm și a faptului că reducem poluarea, dar înainte de toate este, ceea ce spuneam, importanța pe care trebuie să o dăm acestui material și i-aș spune nobil, cum am gândit-mă la lucruri deosebite se pot realiza din sticlă. Mai un aspect aici care vreau să semnalez, faptul că industria de reciclare a sticlei în România e undeva într-o fază nu așa cum ne-am fi dorit. Eu mi-aduc aminte în regimul trecut, dar fiecare sticlă nu exista practic ambalaj de sticlă care să nu fie returnat, că era vorba de sticlă de lapte, că era vorba de borcane de murături sau dulcețuri, orice fel de ambalaj de sticlă reciclat. În vremea respectivă, cred că se recicla sticla și poate cei care sunt aici nu pot ajuta, cred că în proporție de 90% orice fel de ambalaj de sticlă era reciclat. Eu mi-aș dori foarte tare să ajungem în acele vremuri, pentru că sticla are un potențial practic de reciclare nesfârșit. Sigur, dacă vom înțelege cu toții că va trebui să folosim acel material, poate fără coloranți, pentru că atunci intervine dificultatea de a recicla, iar aici industria își poate pune amprenta mai mult decât orice. Eu aș vrea să ascult foarte mult părerile dumneavoastră. Am spus-o și o repet, sunt un mare suporter al industriei de reciclare. Cred foarte tare în potențialul lor și aici vorbim în mod punctual de reciclarea sticlei. Mi-aș dori foarte tare să vedem împreună ce putem să facem ca să stimulăm practic această industrie. Mulțumesc, domnule președinte, vă felicit încă o dată pentru organizarea acestui eveniment și sunt bucuros să avem alături atâția reprezentanți ai industriei din întreaga Europa. Mulțumesc mult!
Thank you very much for setting the scene and also to give us a sense of your political ambitions in Romania. As you mentioned, I mean, glass is a noble material. Products taste better in glass, but I can also tell you one thing, is that the glass value chain also knows how to organize a healthy debate. Okay? So it's not just the products that taste good, but actually the debate is pretty healthy. So we're not afraid to tackle some of the issues that we have, and we'll be doing that today. We have 3 panels, okay, but as you can see, we're laid out in a round table. So the first thing I want to tell everyone is that I will be looking to make eye contact with all of you. If you want to chip in at any point, raise a question, make a comment, you're more than invited to do so. Okay, just literally raise your hand, I'll be making sure I catch you. So this debate is not a debate exclusively for the speakers on the agenda. Okay, that's an important point I want to make. The second thing is that we'll run through different aspects in the agenda. The first one is looking more at legislation, at the general policy and legislation. As the minister said, you know, legislation can have a huge impact on behavior. For instance, in Romania, introducing a deposit return system has a huge impact on behavior, and any action plan on glass collection and recycling needs to take into account the legislative picture and how it evolves. So that would be our first discussion. Second discussion is, let's say, a little bit more operational. How are we going to go about actually collecting all glass packaging in Romania? And then in the afternoon, we'll be discussing the action plan. Okay, this is particularly where I would like all of you to contribute, because at the end of the day, what we would like to have is a sense of what will be the priorities of the glass collection and recycling action plan in Romania, and how will we organize that. Okay, so that'll be a working session where participants all become speakers. All right, that's our program. So to get us started, let's look a little bit at the evolutions of the European and national legislation surrounding the placing on the market of glass containers and indeed all packaging. It's constantly evolving, you know, every few years there's almost like a new piece of legislation. But anyway, we're at a point now where we're very, very close to a final deal on the European level on a new packaging and packaging waste regulation. I would like to kick off by asking a question to Vanessa Chinu. She is Head of Public Affairs and Product Policy at FERVER, the European Container Glass Federation. So you're representing the container glass industry. Can you give us a sense of what were the main concerns, the main issues that the glass industry was facing in the process of this discussion on packaging and packaging waste, and where you're at now? What is your feeling?
Thank you very much, Jean-Paul, and good morning, everyone. It's really an honor and a pleasure to be with you today. So I represent FERVER, European Container Glass Association. We are a founding member of Close Glass Loop, and of course the European partnership is very important, but what is very the core of this partnership is what happens at national level. So we are very pleased to be here today with the Romanian value chain to discuss how we can achieve 90% collection. So thanks a lot for being here and for the Circular Economic Coalition for organizing this event. It's really great. So back to your question, Jean-Paul. PPWR, of course, that kept us quite busy in the past months and years, and we hope that will come to an end pretty soon. Of course, it's a very wide review of the Packaging Waste Directive, so a lot about waste reduction, waste prevention, circularity, the packaging waste part of the text. But what is very important for us as well is that the Packaging and Packaging Waste Directive and soon regulation is about the rules for the placing on the market of packaging and therefore glass packaging. And so what was very important for us in the negotiations was to really remind decision makers that packaging has a functionality, and one of the functionalities of packaging is of course to protect the product, to convey it in good shape from the production to the end consumer, but also to convey the brand identity, the values of the brand, and to attract, to appeal to consumers. So design is really important, and so I will have to disagree with the minister. So standardization is not really our idea. What we really want to keep is the ability of glass packaging to be different, to allow brands to stand out on the shelf. You know that glass comes with different shapes, colors, designs, levels of transparency, and so that was key for us in the negotiations to keep that really functionality of packaging. So we were so that was really important when discussing packaging minimization requirements. So lightweighting is definitely important, and that's definitely an area where our members cooperate with their customers to lightweight or to lightweight packaging, but that shouldn't be at the expense of differentiated designs and shapes. So that was very important, and according to the provisional agreement, this has been to some extent taken into account, and so we are pretty pleased with that design is a key functionality of packaging. And of course, what was very important for us is in relation to recyclability. One of the main reasons to have a regulation was to ensure that all packaging placed on the market will be recyclable. And it was mentioned glass is a fantastic materials in terms of recyclability, permanent material you can recycle over and over again. It will not lose its intrinsic properties. And what is very important for us is to, that's the reason we are here today, is to close the glass loop. So we want to make sure that this bottle, when it's recycled back into a glass bottle, or a glass jar, or a glass flagon. So we wanted to raise the ambition of the initial Commission's proposal to have really this attention to closed-loop recycling. In that sense, the final deal is a little bit disappointing because there is not such recognition of closed-loop recycling, but what is in the final deal is really the recognition that different recycling processes will bring different levels of quality, and there is this definition of high-quality recycling, which we very much welcome, and that will lead us to a number of discussions in the years to come to implement this. So there is much more to be said, and that would be my two key first points.
Okay, thank you, Vanessa. So that's on, let's say, placing on the market of glass containers. If I turn then to Olivier, Secretary General of FERVER, the European Glass Recyclers Federation, the current revision didn't really touch upon the targets for recycling of glass. The targets remained the same as had been agreed in the previous deal. So the targets are not changing, but do you see still any potential in this revision for access to more glass collected and glass recycling, actually? Do you see any favourable prospects there?
Thank you, Jean-Paul. Good morning, everybody. Well, as far as indeed you have these recycling targets, which are included in the current text, in the text that will be submitted tomorrow, if my memory serves me right, to Colectare for a vote. What is of course important for us as recyclers, it's not only the recycling target, but it's also the collection. The collection of the glass, because to be able to attain the recycling target, you need to collect as much glass as possible. So as FERVER, we have been asking pleading for also specific collection targets that might ensure that you reach the recycling targets. So, logically speaking, they should be a little bit higher than the recycling targets. So what we see now in the last version of the text is indeed that there is a mandatory collection target imposed on member states, and member states will have to impose collection targets, but they only have to do it by the 1st of January of 2029. And these should be consistent with the recycling targets. So there is some link between the collection and the recycling target. The date is a little bit strange because we have already 70% we have to meet by 2025 and 75% by 2030. So if you only impose a collection target by the 1st of January 2029, you might come late. So we hope that member states who have issues with collection these days start imposing collection targets earlier than the 1st of January 2029. I think for the, if I may say, for the countries which are, let's say, better at collection, this is not really, I think, a big issue, but for other ones, it might be important to consider that. One item I would like to mention here also, it's maybe a smaller one, but the current text also contains a ban on disposal and incineration for packaging, for design for recycling packaging. But there is a possibility to use also the post-sorting lines. This is a kind of these are lines that are used if there is no separate collection. You can still sort them as consumer. We think that it will be very important there to have good communication towards the consumer, because otherwise he will think that everything will be sorted anyway, and he can just put everything in his bin as he was doing before. So for us, I think these are the two main elements I would like to tell you as a reply to your question.
Okay, so you highlight the importance of collection, which is the first step. Before you can recycle, you need to have access to material. And there seems to be some debate as to whether this will be imposed quick enough on member states as a collection target. In Romania, a step has been taken on collection to introduce a deposit return system. So I'd like to turn to Gemma Webb, CEO and President of FERVER, which has been mentioned already as a new system that's been introduced in Romania with the intent of precisely collecting these glass containers, not just glass containers. Can you give us a sense of the changes that have been made in Romania with the bringing about of this system?
Okay, so good morning everybody. Good morning everybody, and thank you for having me here today. Firstly, just to put into perspective the context of the deposit return system introduction here in Romania. Firstly, in terms of the system and its size, it is the second largest in Europe and the largest integrated deposit return system globally. So, putting it into context, we're talking about 80,000 retailers, 4,000 producers, 19 million citizens, and it's all of these working together to implement the deposit return system. So this is the size. In terms of the system, we launched last November, and it's making progress continually every day, every week, and every month. The other thing to say is we're talking about an annual collection of 7 billion containers across glass, plastic, and metal. Okay? So today, where are we, and what are the figures that we've seen? So today we've collected more than 200 million containers. More than 220 million containers have been put onto the market. In fact, in December, 45 million containers were put onto the market. In January, 180 million containers were put onto the market. And in February, nearly 300 million containers are put onto the market. So every month, we're seeing great progress of more and more products being put onto the market. And in terms of collections, this is working very well. The consumers are participating as well. And in December, in January, there was 31,000 collections. Then we had 2.2 million collections the next month. And in February, we're expecting about 20 million. So this is being implemented at an exponential rate. And what I wanted to say was the engagement of everybody is critical to this success, and the engagement has been fantastic, of producers, of retailers, and the Romanian citizens are really driving to make this a success and to make a difference for Romania. Everybody is focused on the difference it's going to make, because it will move our recycling rates up to the 65% to meet the EU levels from the very low level today. So this gives you a sense of the size, the complexity, but everybody's keeping an eye on the prize. We're implementing the system live. It hasn't been tested. We started just over a year ago. So it's implementing live, and what we're doing is we are correcting as the issues come up. We're correcting and moving on, and this is on a daily basis. And this is the fantastic thing here about Romania is everybody's working together because they understand the difference that it's going to make. So it's not easy, it's not perfect, but it's perfectible. And this will happen day by day, week by week, and month by month.
Okay, brilliant. So you're working with an ambitious program, and it seems to be, increasing every month, the number of containers that you're getting back, and the number of containers with a deposit being placed on the market. Now, obviously, when we're talking about collection, we're talking about a material that has become a waste. But just before becoming a waste, it is also actually a product. And there is obviously an interaction then between collection and placing on the market. And collection systems also have an effect on the placing on the market, and this is when we're talking also about extended producer responsibility. Behind the deposit system, there are also brands placing products on the market, and there are retailers helping to organize a collection system. And this is quite new. Typically collection systems would have been managed by municipalities. So there's also big changes for brands and retailers, and this is what I'd like to hear from now. Could we maybe then start with Evenimentul? He's sustainability lead at Mega Image, part of the Deleuze group. You're really a central piece of the system because you have to manage this new collection stream. Can you give us a sense of these changes and how you think that might impact your business when it comes also to glass containers? That would be really interesting to hear.
Thank you for the question. Good morning, everyone. So, what I can tell as Mega Image, I will connect somehow with Julia and with the beer industry. Probably like Carlsberg, we have the largest RDM network in Romania currently. So, of course, we are a big supporter of the system. But now, let's say, we are not a supporter anymore. We are a player. And the game is completely different, In the field, it's completely different than on the TV, on different town halls and so on. The system seems easy, but in practice it's really difficult. Of course, we see upsides and downsides in, let's say, collections behavior. But let's talk about glass because we are on this round table here. For example, in Mega Image, in January, 2% of what we have collected from all of the containers have been represented by glass. In February, we see that this, let's say, level has increased from 2% to 8%. What makes the glass different from the rest of the materials? Since we are collecting the glass scratched, of course, this creates hurdles because there are a lot of health issues regarding transferring the glass from the bins in which the waste is collected to the transporter and so on. But what can I tell you is that the vision of the system is properly set. The team players from the systems, regardless of the let's say stakeholders, like Mr. Damov said initially, are keen to see the system succeed. Of course, in 2025, from my perspective, everything will be difficult to manage from a retailer perspective, but also upstream and downstream on the collection system. But starting with 2025, we will see that, let's say, the operations are going to be somehow leveled, and we can improve and collect the fruits and the benefits generated by the system. But returning to the current status, of course, we see that the clients are happy to return the bottles. The bottles are not, the glass containers are not always returned by, let's say, the real users, but by other informal pickup persons. But this is probably some Romanian traditional collective way of working. But this is the good thing. In practice, what we are looking at is to see that these containers are not staying in the garbage, they are not remaining in the nature, or some train lines, how we have discussed with each other a few months ago. Just to have an overview, and since we discussed about Carlsberg, and probably I will also ask Julia to continue.
Thank you. Yeah, indeed, I would like to turn to Julia. I mean, you're representing the brewers of Romania as general manager, and beers are obviously then part of the system. Do you see that there will be any changes in the market actually when it comes to the containers being placed in your sector and the relationship that will have with the deposit system? What are your concerns, or where do you see opportunities?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jean-Paul, for the introduction, and really happy to be here in this event today. I will be the one not saying that glass is the most and the beverage container, and that the beverage in glass is the best, because obviously the beer industry places on the market the widest range of packaging, but definitely the glass is an important share of the packaging split in the beer sector. It has actually been the only one that has increased over the last 10 years, at least in Romania. We saw an increase of 10% in beer consuming glass to the detriment of PET, and I think that's a significant trend already. And just because we have such a complete wide set of packaging that we are using, and as it was not mentioned already, Romania is one of the countries that lays behind in terms of collection rates. The DRS system was considered by brewers alongside other beverage producers as a solution to compensate for the lack of separate collection that we see at the level of local municipality. So it basically comes in to solve the problem and to increase the collection rate. Eventually also to put forward the clean material for the recycling industry to also develop here. When we started to work with the system already 5 years ago, which was the initiative of the beverage industry, brewers together with the water and soft drink producers get together to discuss the ways this system can be implemented in Romania, because at the time I believe there were 10 DRS systems already implemented in Europe, and there were differences between them, and we wanted to see exactly what would be the best to fit the Romanian particularities, whether regarding geography split, retail split, as well as consumer support. And part of the feasibility study that we did at the time was also to test consumer preferences, because we were concerned, now coming to your question, about the potential shift in consumption between packages, especially, for example, because we decided we would go ahead with the single deposit value. The concern was that perhaps that would encourage consumers to change their consumption habits from small packaging, glass can, towards the larger potential packaging available on PT. And we wanted to make the system work in a way that does not create distortions on the market. It does not change consumer patterns. Of course, this can happen, but ideally it cannot happen in a significant way. So what we expect now from the DRS, the way it was built in Romania, is that it comes with a neutral effect on the market. The positive benefit being that of generating a more informed consumers, because that is exactly the expectations that we have, where Romanians will become more aware of their impact on the environment and more concerned about how they handle their waste. In particular, the beverage containers now have a destination that is more environmentally friendly. Thank you.
Okay, so you had this consideration on potential market distortion when introducing the system. You went for a single deposit value. That's an interesting starting point, but there is always going to be an interaction between the collection system, consumer preferences, the evolution of the packaging mix in the market, and this will then also lead to changes possibly in the operational side, coming back to the point of Mega Image on how will these materials evolve and the necessary space that you need to devote to each of these materials. Maybe to get another market perspective, could I bring in Aline Vizan, Legal and Compliance Director at Massvect Romania? Can you give us a sense then of how you see the evolution in your market in the soft drinks sector, fruit juices, I think?
Thank you, Jacob. So it's not about only soft drinks, but also I can bring your flavor of water market and also other food products which are packaged in glass. It was a game changer. Introducing DRS last year, it was a game changer for us, like an industry. And why am I saying this? Because from an operational point of view, it was an easy one for us to change some labels. Okay. What needs to be changed? What was the important, the essential change here was what to do with the package. Of course, for the consumer, what is important is the product, what's inside. No one really cares about the package. But we should be responsible of what happens with the package after it is consumed. And we are here to be responsible both in financial way, okay, to support the costs of getting the product back and recycle it. And also doing what's necessary to make sure that this is really happening. Why can I say this? We have faced here in Romania, 2015, not many times ago, a huge change. It was a huge change generated by an impact, a real impact of controls of what happens with recycling. And it was a boom at that time when we realized, together with the authorities, that the money we are using to spend in the system as producers to finance this collection and recycling was not truly used for that purpose. It was a huge fraud. Guess what? In glass recycling sector. And what happened then? We paid penalties as producers. Huge penalties. And it was a time when we decided, come on, what can we do to stop financing a system which is not working? And then it was our interest and involvement and supporting local leaders. That's why we have here such extended products area covered. We have all drinks, all beverages, all packages in the others. That's why it's different, Romania from the others. That's why maybe someone can ask, come on, why is glass in the others? It's not usual. There is an explanation, because it's not it was not the proper way to handle this package. Okay? Now, what is the impact for us, like producers? We don't want to have it, because we want to sell our products to the consumers. We want to offer them the same experience with the same range of packages. Because someone likes it in glass, someone empty, small bottle, big bottle. This shouldn't be a change on how consumer is feeling this new system. Another important thing that was done here was to give access to the consumer to each shop to be able to return. The same is not usual. Maybe it's a limit of only big stores, only urban areas. It was not working. It was not working in Romania, and what we have now is a big win that should be preserved. We need the best experience for the consumer to be most easy way how to handle this consumer pay. Okay? And results will appear. I know Gemma is optimistic. We are also optimistic that we should arrive in the proper place where 90% of the packages is collected and recycled. It's early, but we have a fatigue. Some industries already think, why are we participating in this expensive system which is DRS? I will not say names, but we shouldn't have these feelings. Industries should be responsible and should seek for final outcome of their existence on the market. We are not here only to sell products. We are here to be responsible for what happens after the product is consumed. And if we know that for Romania, especially, the solution to handle this very material like glass, in order to have it properly sorted, properly collected, not contaminated, is the DRS system. So let's support the system. Let's accept this extra cost, which maybe looks different than previous system, maybe looks bigger, but what can bring us 90% production rate, good material, properly sorted, no price is enough for papers. Thank you.
Thank you. And in addition to what you're saying on how extensive the system is, covering all beverages, all materials, you're also adding an important point, which is all retailers or all shops, so there's no question of size. I guess maybe very, very small stores might be somehow exempt. I don't know, not even, okay. So that's also a very extensive coverage on the ability for consumers to go back to certain stores with their empties. Now I know that deposit return systems are, heavily debated in general in all sorts of countries, and we know that this is going to be a movement that increases because the targets, especially on PT, are such that it's difficult to achieve them without introducing some kind of deposit return system. But then that also has a potential effect on whether or not other materials should be included in the system. And you explained the reasons why glass would have been included in Romania, but there might be different ways of seeing that in other countries. There is nevertheless some experience across Europe of deposit return systems, including glass, for recycling. And I'm just wondering, maybe for Vanessa and Olivier, a quick reaction on some of the things that you've seen in some of these other countries, and whether you would have a reflection or a reaction on the system that's being set up here in Romania.
I can start. So when we discuss with our members DRS for recycling, so not for reuse, but really for recycling, the key question for us is how do we achieve the 90% collection target so that our members get recycled content that they can put into their glass products. So that's really the quick question. So how do we close the loop? And the first thing is that we don't really see the need to have two systems. One, a DRS that would deal only with beverages, and another system that would deal with other products. So I understand that in Romania, for example, the system is very large in terms of scope, for example. So wine and spirits are included on top of water, soft drinks, and beer, but you still need an additional system to deal with food jars, with perfumes, with cosmetics products. So we don't see the need. We understand the logic of plastic, that we need to separate food grade, food contact plastic from other types of plastic packaging, but we don't need that for glass. For glass, you can connect every type of glass packaging together that will not have an impact on the proper recycling of those packaging. You can put a wine bottle with a perfume bottle, and at the end of the day, you can recycle that back into a water bottle. So that's the first thing. We don't really see the need based on the properties of the material. And also, Jean-Paul was mentioning the experience across Europe. What we see is that very high collection rates and very high quality of the collected material can be achieved with EPR schemes, so via bottle banks or via curbside collection. So to give you some figures, there are currently 13 countries with a collection rate above 80%, and only 3 of them are running a TRS, for including glass. So for us, that shows that we can have one system, the EPR scheme, that will deal with all packaging, with all products, with all glass products, and still achieve very high performance. So we think it's simple, it's more convenient for the consumer, and also it's less expensive. The TRS, it was mentioned, is more costly, especially for glass. And so, of course, that's something we're very sensitive to, because that can create market distortions. Also, the level of the deposit can create market distortions. And we've seen in some countries that there has been a shift from glass to other materials because of the way the TRS was set up. So that's, of course, something very key for us. And again, what is important for us at the end of the day is that we achieve 90% for all products. And we see that what is very important is to make sure that, yes, the TRS will perform, achieve very high collection rate, but how do we ensure that we also improve the performance of the EPR scheme? Because at the end of the day, that's how Romania will achieve its recycling targets in the PPWR. So that's why for us, we really prefer to keep the system simple, cost-effective, and we really prefer one single waste stream. So of course, I'm aware that you just launched in Romania a TRS. So now the question is, how do we make sure that we have the TRS system on one hand, the EPR scheme on the other hand, and we work together to ensure very high collection rate at the end of the day for all products, and not just for the products in scope of the TRS.
And so that's, let's say, a vision on the market effects to some extent. I'd like to also turn to Olivier on the more operational aspect linked to what you see in terms of deposit return systems covering glass for recycling and the actual ability then to recycle that glass. So are there any questions or issues that you've seen in Europe in terms of the quality of the material, in terms of the way the material is handled after it's been collected in the deposit system, and how that might affect or impact its ability to be recycled back into a new glass container?
Yes, Jean-Paul, so I share the opinion of Vanessa, I think, on many points. So, of course, as far as the DRS system itself is concerned, I think the satisfaction of it is kind of dependent on the percentage of collection. So we really need to look to the percentage of collection in these countries. And I think, indeed, for Romania, it's quite positive to have it, but it will probably not be enough. You will also need the other glass, the jars, and the other glass that you still need to collect. So I think that's an important item. We're losing glass in the glass of the jars, which is flint glass in most cases, and which is the best glass for the recyclers. So that's one thing. Of course, if you have the two systems existing next to each other, you will also have an increased cost of collection, because you have to keep the two ongoing, and your other collection, your EPR collection, will be less because there will already be glass collected. So that's the first point. As far as the quality is concerned, indeed we could say that in principle the quality should be better in the DRS system because you have no contaminants. You cannot just put a cup of tea in the machine and the machine will reject the cup of tea, so there should be less contaminants. However, what we see is that there is an imbalance in colors because you have the first of all the glass, I think especially here in Romania also it's broken, and often it's broken when it goes in the machine to avoid that it's circulating 200 times, so to say. So because it's broken, you have more fines. Yeah, the fines cannot be detected by the optical sorter, and because it's mixed, so it's mixed glass, you have less white glass because you have the jars that are not included. So it's mixed, and then it goes through the optical sorter, and the optical sorter is not able to detect fines. So you lose more flint, let's say good quality glass through that system. That's what we see or what we experience. So I think on a quality level, in theory it should be better, but in practice it is not always, let's say, better than what we see with the classic EPR systems that are working in, I would say, in the Western countries especially. So that's what I can say on quality.
Okay, so it is separate collection in its purest form, but that doesn't mean that just after the separate collection there aren't a couple of issues to be addressed in the logistics and in the handling, which might be different to separate collection in a municipal system where there's more tons in one go, but potentially a little bit more contamination. There was a reaction from Aline and I think Jen as well, so we'll start with Aline first.
What Vanessa said sounds perfect. But looking on the local flavor, and we have here Mr. Vanov that can detail. In order to have the classical EPR functioning and collecting glass, the essential condition is to have separate collection. What we don't have. So we should say it clear now. We don't have separate collection in Romania. Most of the packages, post-consumer, especially glass, is not collected from separate collection system. It's collected from the garage side. Do we want that contaminated, broken glass to be reused in bottles, in our bottles? I don't think so. That's why it was necessary to have the glass inside the RS, not outside. It was a need, a necessity, not, let's say, a fancy option which we have done here in Romania. Okay? And as the minister said, why most of the glass is not reused in bottles in Romania, but into something else? That's why. Thank you.
Thank you. The benefit of being a late follower is that you can learn from every other market. Okay? And Romania, we're a late follower. But one thing that has been done over the last couple of years here as the producers and retailers and everybody has come together to put the plan together before implementation is learning from the other countries of all of the things that need to be done to make it work. One of the key things of increased collection rate is culture habit. It's a citizen. With 19 million citizens. You look at the other countries, they've been recycling for many years. I lived in Belgium in the 80s. We already had separation there. Okay? In Romania, there isn't. Okay? And what the DRS system is doing is putting in place a structural change right across the country to enable this cultural change. And the reason we're seeing the collection immediately, and we're seeing the retailers having their RVMs full immediately from the consumers, is we're giving the consumers the ability to easily bring back the products. Coming back to the glass, Lynn is right, you take one part out, it makes it more complicated. You have to keep things simple. You're trying to educate 19 million consumers to change overnight. To do that, you need to keep things simple. You start dividing materials in and out, we make it complicated, and for what benefit? The benefit has to be a total recycling return overall to get good material. The other point that I want to make, two more points and I'll stop. The other point that I want to make in terms of glass, a big debate was had, would we crush the glass or just break it? We made the decision here, we would just break it, to not have the issue that you just discussed and to make it easier for recycling the glass. So this is a very specific specification. And the other point that I wanted to make is, I've just forgotten it, but we can come back later. Yes, sorry. So in terms of the infrastructure, one thing I didn't mention earlier is the infrastructure that we're putting in place. Here is we're putting counting and sorting centres nationwide to reduce the cost of the logistics, which is one of the key costs. And here we bring the products to there. We already have 3 counting and sorting centres up and running. In another 3 weeks, we will announce Russia, because we'll have another centre there. At the end of April, we will have Bucharest up and running, and by June, we will have the majority of the centres that are required up and running here in Romania. Final point I will leave you with, 3 weeks ago, we sold the first materials to recyclers, okay? And the material, we got the top price, because the material was the best quality they had seen so far in Romania. And it stands to reason, you bring glass in, you bring plastic, you bring metal in, all separated, you sort them, so the contamination is minimal. So you get really good quality material that can be reflected into the system. Thank you.
Thank you, and also building on the same idea, we always said during the process of building the DRS system in Romania and in our interaction with the authorities, that DRS cannot be the only way for Romania to meet the targets, because it would not deliver against those targets. But it is definitely an instrument that it's getting us closer to that objective. And that it's the point that Gemma already raised. We are looking at it as an instrument to educate consumers. It was mentioned earlier by the chair of the industry committee that we used to have that habit in Romania of collecting when we were, some of us were kids at the time, but we grew up with the idea that things have to be collected, and we were bringing back the bottles and the jars and so many other types of packaging to collection centers organized in every city. But we lost that habit over the last 20 years and more. And I think it will take some time before we learn it. The new generations obviously will learn faster than the others, but it's a process that we are looking at. As long as we get involved into the DRS, the support that the population is giving to the DRS already in its early stages, since it was started, shows that there is positivity behind it. And that will reflect also on the other type of packaging. And my personal hope here is that while we are getting used to handling the beverage containers within such a system, everyone will be more concerned on how they're handling the other packaging, which will continue to stay in the EPR scheme. And we would like to see that one improved as well, because there is a significant need for that. According to the authority statistics, we understand that only 13 or 14% of the municipal waste is collected separately in Romania, which is significant behind the other members of the European Union in terms of their rates of separate collections. So that's why that gap has to be covered very soon. Perhaps the main reason of concern that we currently have, now linking back to the previous topic that was discussed, the draft regulation on packaging and packaging waste, is actually that as we stay here involved in setting up the positive return system for the one-way packaging, we are concerned that we also have to invest in one that deals with the usable packaging, and we can discuss about that one as well.
Actually, that was indeed going to be my follow-up question, but I'll first hand over to Constantin to chip in.
Yeah, I think we have this perspective looking, from Western Europe. That's why we're here in Romania, because we're talking different and we're living a little bit different in the world of glass. I will tell you the perspective of a glass recycler. Well, consider that in this country, situation was quite dramatic because we're speaking about 70–80% collection rate, bottle banks. There are no bottle banks. Go here in Bucharest, you'll see there is no bottle banks. We need to make a huge step. So somehow this decision was dramatic and was pushed by authorities, because having 450,000 tons a year of packaging put on the market and going in a closed loop, we have here BA, the producer of packaging, they could see less than 100,000 tons of cullet. So where is a closed loop? As Olivier said before, to have a good recycling, you need a good collection, and we don't have it. It's clear that the failure of municipalities in collecting separate was moved on the producers. So DRS is taking now the responsibility from the municipalities, and the producer, they do this huge effort. It's not easy, it's costly, but looks like it was a dramatic decision. It's expensive, but we can do it. We are expecting now collection to boom in glass. Before we didn't see the glass as recyclers. Yes, material was very contaminated, and I would say in glass contamination was not really so important. We could remove. You can make a food grade, it's not like in the plastics, but you can obtain food grade from bad material as well. You work a little bit more. It's true, to avoid fraud in the system of DRS, you need to break the glass. It's obvious, it's happening in other countries. We are not inventing this solution. How it's broken, how big are the pieces, we didn't make yet any report, and we have a plan as a green glass to come when we have enough quantities collected with a clear report so we can compare, we can combine, and we will be the place where the reality can be measured. And we are ready for that, and we will make public all these results. I think we have to adjust things. I think we have to keep an eye on the rest of the glass on the market, because we have a lot of glassware, we have a lot of jars. I think Romania is importing more than 30,000 tons of jars from Moldova to put pickles and to put the sweets and to preserve some food in farms and at home, which is not considered here. So we may have, on top of 450,000 tons, another 50,000 tons of equivalent of the glass which can go in the packaging. We have a lot to do. So what we are seeing in Romania now is a big push of the government in moving the glass, because they don't see any municipality with good results. So the rate of collection can go from, I don't know, 20–30%. Even we have a reporting very enthusiastic here in Romania, but if we look at the end of the day, cullets versus aggregates, we are losing the battle for the closed loop. So that's why personally I wanted to have such a discussion, because cullet here represent in Romania 1/3 of the recycling. How will go from 1/3 to 90%? This is on us, and we have to combine both streams. And I think it's a lot of work, and we'll come back. Maybe we'll learn more. Maybe you will learn more from this experience. At least we started.
Brilliant, thank you, Constantin. And before we have a coffee break, I do want to touch upon another aspect of this interaction between deposit return systems and the market. And one of the merits that is often associated with deposit return systems is is that even if they are applied for the recycling of packaging, the idea is that they, in the end, promote and enable the introduction on the market of reusable packaging. That's at least the general merit that is said, that DRS is also the vehicle for more reuse. Now, the question to you, I'll start with Julia, as you mentioned it in the last comment that you made. So, first of all, is reusable packaging part of the deposit system today in Romania? That's actually just the first question. And second question, do you see any development to go towards more reusable packaging formats via the availability of these deposit systems in Romania?
Well, the answer to the first question is very easy. It's not reusable packaging. We decided not to include it in the DRS at the time that we were reflecting on how we will set up the DRS. But we never excluded the possibility that in the future it can be attached to it. And I'm saying that on behalf of one industry, perhaps the only beverage industry that has retained a significant part of its portfolio in reusable glass, as well as can, the metal packaging as well. But then also looking into how the system will work and the complexity of the system in the Romanian market, as Gemma already mentioned, presented. Having the reusable also attached to it from the beginning would have been a completely nightmare in terms of logistics and as well as costs associated. It can be attached in the future. We know that there are systems like the one in Lithuania where the reusable glass has been included in the system in the DRS, and that led also to a standardization, slight standardization of the sector, because they started from a large number of different bottles and got to almost 30 at some point, if I remember correctly. When we did the feasibility study in Romania, we learned that there were, in 2018, at least 60 different bottles, reusable bottles on the market. So, ideally, obviously, there is no economical option to get to 1 or 5, but we might go closer to 30, for example. That will allow handling the system and the reusable system as well. But I believe what is raising concerns today, now linking to the debate that is happening in Brussels around the packaging and packaging waste regulation, is the fact that ideally this regulation would be a success if everyone leaves a little unhappy. A perfect result of the negotiation. But I think that there is many strong feelings negative with the way that the current regulation looks like, and I know there is a different wording every day on this. But nonetheless, we see significant challenges. For example, because we started the system in Romania, that is likely to cost. I would not say how much, we would just have to see whether indeed it becomes more expensive, the EPR scheme. But we are at the beginning of a significant investment, and because of that we stand close to the Scandinavian countries, which have a full circulation system already in place. When we said as a sector that we need to have complementarity between the targets. We cannot look at the DRS system and the reusable system as two parallel systems that we can invest in both at the same time. So understanding that there is no viability between investing in parallel systems, we hoped that the regulation, and we still do because there is no final wording yet, will reflect this complementarity between the targets so that when there is an efficient DRS system in place, the aim for the reusable should not put the current DRS, the existing one, at risk of being discounted. And of course, well, there are other concerns that we have with the wording of this regulation, but that links also to the way we approach the topic of DRS in Romania, which was to include all beverages, all packaging. We believe that exceptions for certain categories of beverages and certain categories of packaging should not be the way forward, because introducing such discriminatory approach at the level of the EU legislation already creates discrimination within the market and likely will also generate distortions between economic operators.
Okay, thank you. Aline, a vision on reusable packaging in your sector. Do you see a potential for DRS to move in that direction here in Romania?
Indeed, it's the way forward. It's the way forward because if we want to really take the best of our packages, we need to look for reuse. Of
course, it's not simple. You need to change the habits of the consumer because you have it now in the shops, but you need to trigger the consumer to pick the one which is returning it. Okay? We'll work on that. Having this separate target for reuse in the regulation will be a big help because you will standardize this need to all players in the market. A portion of the packages should be reusable, and that's all. It's a regulation, it should be applied. Okay? Now, what will be this impact on the industries? How many consumers will choose water in type of packages? How many will choose soft drinks, beer? No one knows. But we are here to work on it. We are here to support this shift to this type of package. And of course, to support the cost associated to this shift. Okay. We'll speak on that. I think that in no more than 10 years, this should be produced in whole Europe, so also in Romania.
Thank you. And then on a retailer's perspective, I mean, you already talked about some of the challenges that you're facing to collect the glass and probably the other materials as well for recycling. Do you see the DRS then evolving towards then reuse, making you have to deal with two different streams and creating more space for, let's say, waste or reuse of products in your stores and less space for selling? How do you see that?
Sure, we repeat another floor of the reusable. There is nobody regarding this topic. But let's talk about the timeline. If we are looking in the past, starting with, let's say, behind 2024, 2023, 2015, and so on, we can see that the market selected the EPR schemes. Based on different analyses, scenarios, and experiences, we decided to create the DRS, and DRS also to contain the glass. Because if it's crushed, non-crushed, it really doesn't matter. This is the next step that we have decided, the next way in which we are going to operate in the future. If we are looking, let's say, on a broad perspective, of course, reusable bottles are the way forward, but this is, let's say, the future. Unfortunately, the future is not now. Now, we have the glass which is collected, crushed, and reused in different type of, let's say, other products. In 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, maybe less or more, of course, reusable is going to be a mandatory thing because we are consuming too much of everything. The most, let's say, ready to use as a reusable product is the glass. We cannot foresee now that, for example, cans or PET are going to be reusable based on what we have now. Of course, glass at some point will become reusable also in Romania, but currently, for the foreseeable future, is going to be collected from our perspective as the DRS is designed.
A comment then on seeing potentially reuse being part of the system. Is that being discussed inside Returo? Is that in the timeline, or is there even some mandatory target that might come into play?
Just putting things into a little bit of perspective. This time last year, there were 7 people in Returo, and with the support of the producers and with the corporate guarantees, it was June last year, or was it July last year, when we got the investment money to invest in the facilities. So our focus at the moment is making this system work, and through continuous improvement, we will make it better and better. It's not perfect at the moment, but it will be, it's perfectible, and that's our sole focus at the moment. Thank you.
Okay, so reuse is not quite in the focus as I understand it. It's very much on recycling. Maybe then, just to wrap up, a final comment from Vanessa and Olivier, maybe, Vanessa first, because here we're also talking about waste reduction in reuse, but there are many other ways. Can you just give a very last comment on the European legislation, where it's going in terms of waste reduction, and how the glass industry sees its strategy for waste reduction?
Sure. So, on waste reduction, so that was a key topic for us in the context of the discussion on PPWR, because for the first time, the Commission proposed, and that's since endorsed by the two institutions, there will be what the Commission called packaging waste reduction targets for 2030, 35, 40. What is important to keep in mind is that it's not about packaging waste, it's about packaging placed in the market. So that's the first time that the Commission says you need to reduce the amount of packaging placed on the market. So I think that's important to keep that in mind. It's not about waste, it's about packaging. So we could discuss that, but what was key for us and the problem we had with those targets was the fact that those targets are weight-based, and glass being heavier, it's kind of easy to achieve the targets by shifting from a heavy material, glass, to a lighter material. So our priority over the past year has really been to explain that to decision makers in Brussels and in member states. And we are quite pleased to see that in what's supposed to be the final text, this concern has been taken into account in the sense that it's clearly mentioned that shifting to lighter material is not waste reduction. And that was a key point for us. We would have preferred material-specific targets so that each material reduces for its own material. It would have been much practical mechanism to ensure that we all do our fair share. But well, already with what is in the text, that's quite satisfactory considering the starting point.
Okay, thank you. And Julia mentioned, the lack of, the difficult aspect of complementing reuse and recycling when it comes to investments. So when you have a lot of investments to be made on recycling, it's difficult then to ask people to also add investment on reuse, right? You mentioned that. So Olivier, from the recycling perspective, what is the strategy on waste reduction? I mean, is the closed loop recycling model for glass the waste reduction strategy, or do you see it as complementary also to more reusable packaging on the market? That's a tricky one, huh? I thought I would surprise you with a tricky question.
Let's say that to look at reuse, we do not really have a very clear position at this moment on reuse, because we would like to assess a little bit more and see what happens. But what we can say that what we think is that, of course, if the volumes go down, cost will go up for collection. So that's one thing, whether you like it or not. So that's one thing. On the other hand, we think that maybe if we go more towards reuse, we might have more glass again, because glass is a better material for reuse than plastics and we think and metals. So that could be positive in the end for our recyclers, and we might also have better quality, because if we have reuse, we will be more in the B2B market when we get the glass than in the B2C market. So that's what we see for the moment.
And you still need to recycle the glass at its end of life, even when it's done several rotations in the market. So it's actually quite complementary, if I understand. You can recycle and reuse. Okay, well, a warm round of applause for our 6 panelists. It's been great, thank you so much. I counted myself as a panelist. 5 panelists.
Jean-Paul, with your permission, just a small announcement, not less related. Someone lost a Mercedes car key. They can be found downstairs in the security officers. Thank you.
Okay, so actually this is a great time to go and find the key and the Mercedes.
Of dimension of a district and different number of inhabitants. And underneath the population and how is that divided between districts, you see very, very small numbers, but it's publicly available. I got it from hotnews.ro. The estimated budget of the districts that they are paying for sanitation. Please keep in mind that sanitation is not only waste management, it's also about dealing with the snow and also dealing with the street cleaning by washing it and so on. If you would see there, but you can't because it's really small, but I can tell you that we have districts that are planning to pay between 34 million euro per year up to 40,000 million euro per year. But it's just the budget. It's a big difference between what they are budgeting and what they are actually paying, because they are paying the sanitation companies based on their performance or on their lack of performance, let's put it. In total, we have these budgets that are all allocated for Bucharest, and the experience shows us that no really important investments were done in Bucharest in terms of infrastructure for collection. We only see that happening now because this year we have at least 2 districts that are accessing European funds. And just to give you a very clear example with numbers, not big investing class, but because I have the numbers, District 2, they are investing 23,000 million. Is it 1,000? 23 yes, K millions in euro in infrastructure, and they are going to place over 130,000 containers. This is only happening this year. Before these investments, we were talking about garbage, and for last years we were talking about 2 waste streams, wet and non-wet. Could we please move to the next? Okay, so for the municipality, for me, when talking about collection and data, we actually are facing two streams. On the one hand, we have the municipal waste that is collected by sanitation companies, and on the other hand, we see the mostly packaging that has been collected for many years by EPR schemes. So, and I do remember many years ago when I started working in recycling, in collection, whatever, in WEEE, that we were meeting waste generators and asking them to put separately lamps, and their response was, I don't even have a solution for cardboard. You are telling me that you are going to collect lamps. We are still there, but while the sanitation did not invest in sanitation and municipalities, did not invest in infrastructure for separate collection, let's call it business-to-business sectors, those that were having the market for the packaging, the collectors, the EPR schemes, they have invested, they have developed, they are the ones actually collecting from the market the packaging waste. And what somehow is left in the municipal waste containers, not completely, but I do remember someone years ago saying, from a sanitation company, saying, I only get the bananas leftovers in the municipal collection system. But yes, that happened because the parallel system, more efficient, more with investment. Could you please move to the next slide? Thank you. This private sector was fueled by clear targets imposed on producers, and so they were forced to achieve the targets and also to provide the funding, and they did so through the EPR schemes. Now they do have access, and this, of course, shifts toward retro because of how the system has recently developed. But they've educated the B2B sector to collect separately, to see value in the packaging, and not to give it to the municipal collection stream, because from there they knew for sure that they won't get the targets done. I'm talking about the producers, and the waste generators knew for sure that this waste will go to landfill. Please, next slide. So, for Bucharest, when we are talking about municipal waste, these are the data for last year, where we have the very, let's say, specific scenario due to some legislation changes, whatever. Hardly any waste was treated. Basically, every waste that was generated in Bucharest was landfilled. And you see in the slide on your left hand side, you see the tons per district. But please remember and compare them, and you will see that district number I should have brought my glasses. Okay, I don't know them. District number 4 has landfilled a lot of waste, while he's one of the smallest districts in terms of population. So there is a big question about the data they are filling in. I'm just sharing them with them and ask you to look at them and to analyze, taking into consideration all these things. The number of population that should be somehow related to the quantities per person. They are not. And you see on the last graphic, the one that has a red line, that's the average. The average waste that is generated by an inhabitant of Bucharest. But you see big differences between districts. The average is 422 kilos per inhabitant. Meanwhile, we see big differences in quantities by different districts, and we can assume that it's a matter of data and what we put in, what the districts put in, and what the sanitation companies declare as municipal waste. Going to the next slide, you see here a split in categories. Of course, the largest, which is like 67%, is mixed waste. We are talking about 490,000 tons. This is mixed. And other categories are mentioned there. Let's say that the second largest pile is street cleaning residues. What do they contain? Maybe they do contain some other kind of waste than leaves and dust. Probably they do. And I think the third largest is the residual waste, and then we are talking about mixed construction and demolition. In total, we see 725,000 tons that were landfilled from the municipality of Bucharest last year. Another important aspect that we need to keep in mind is that only last year, actually, we've got all the districts and the general mayor sitting at one table and deciding that it's actually the last chance to do something about waste management in Bucharest. So at this point we have an agreement. Of course, let's forget about elections, because if we go into the elections, I'm pretty worried about future agreements, but at this point, we have the 6th district talking about the fact that the way forward is implementing separate collection and not wet, and not just wet and non-wet. They haven't reached an agreement like, okay, all districts will do the same, but we see at least three districts really investing into that. And we have an agreement that was and is well taken care of by the Association of in Bucharest, because starting this year, all waste, in theory, in practice we are not there yet, but in theory, is going to be treated. So when talking about what kind of waste can we expect, what kind of, where do we expect glass to come from, I think we should look at the mixed waste and also the street cleaning. We are talking about the big pile of the municipal waste, and from there maybe we can see some good results in terms of packaging waste that can be extracted. And reaching to my last slide. Again, very small slide. Some other data. So we've seen the big picture, but when looking into glass, I'm not sharing here the district because it's irrelevant. I just named them A, B, C, D, E, F, and they are not in the correct order, so don't bother trying to understand. And I did that because there is a specific situation where one district does not report anything to the municipality. They simply just don't send the data. But anyhow, these are the data that comes from 5 districts of Bucharest in terms of separate collected packaging glass. These are the tons that are reported by the sanitation companies. And we are talking about 2,757 tons. This is what comes as packaging glass from the sanitation companies in Bucharest. And we have some other 1,500 tons coming from the sorting process. So altogether, what municipality in theory is declaring as glass collected separately is it's less than 500 tons. 5,000 tons glass last year. One last remark I would like to make is that I was looking over maybe not a remark, a question mark. I was looking over the publicly available data of the OEX for 2022. This is the year where I could find data for all the CRSOs. And from my calculation, the put on the market of glass was roughly over 400,000 tons. That was the put on the market. If we are considering that 65% target was achieved for this number, we are saying that through the, let's put it, business-to-business system, there were over 267,000 tons. These mathematical numbers. The mayor is a mathematician, so I don't need to do it. So these were the glass quantities that were recycled according to the data that we see from the OERs. Then I'm making some assumptions. We know as a general number that roughly, and please correct me if I'm wrong, 30% of the put on the market of the packaging is placed in Bucharest, roughly. And if this 30%, the target was achieved through the CRSOs, to the OERs, then we have over 80,000 tons of packaging glass that is already extracted, mainly from B2B for sure, not from citizens. But these quantities are already collected and hopefully recycled from Bucharest. Maybe it's not 80, maybe it's 70, maybe it's 60. But for sure, the numbers that we are comparing, and I don't want to say efficient, but the number we are comparing is 5,000 compared to 60,000. And yes, that is mainly due to the fact that the investments were not done in due time, and they are not there at this moment either, at the level we all need them. But also, let's just consider that business was, as always is, a better player, more performant, and they already did that, and they overstepped the municipality, doing their job, absolutely doing their job. But when trying to answer how much packing waste can we extract from the municipal waste, I remember that line, we only get the bananas, and just think about it.
Thank you, Roxana. I think it's always very challenging when we're talking about waste management and we meet the realities of governance of public space, which is a highly competitive space and governed by competing and conflicting interests, and that's just a reality that one has to deal with. And waste management is only a small share of that. And I know in particular what you're talking about in relation to support collecting all glass packaging in Romania.
Thank you, Jean-Paul, for the kind introduction. It was 5 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, almost in December 2019, that I first had the privilege of being invited by the Close the Glass local community and EXPRA, whom we're a member of, to participate in the first debate, which eventually conducted to the official platform being implemented. So I'm honored that 5 years later we are all here today. Hopefully my presentation will include enough elements to be meaningful. As you said, we are just one of the 16 EPR schemes, or producer responsibility organizations, currently acting on the market. So I chose to share with you some general figures of the market. But first, just a few words about the Economia. The first producer responsibility organization that was licensed way back in 2004 for the management of packaging and packaging waste. However, 20 years later, we're now a very big market and a fierce competition, no doubt about that. In 2008, we have become members of the Packaging Recovery Organization Europe that are basically licensing the Green Dot trademark to national members for the respective countries. In 2013, we have become a founding member of EXPRA, the Extended Producer Responsibility Alliance, and this is the connection of my being here today on behalf of Economia. In 2020, we have become members of the National Romanian Association of EPR schemes for packaging and packaging waste management. And I'm also saluting my colleagues, some of them present here. And last but not least important, most recently we have become members of the Romanian Coalition for Circular Economy, to whom I would like to extend our gratitude for kindly inviting us today in this European conference. Economia has had a significant contribution since 2004 to initiating the separate collection system for packaging waste management in Romania. In just general figures, some more than 18,500 containers in different volumes and approximately 5.5 million bags were deployed at national level by signing agreements with more than 750 authorities and delegated municipal operators. But this is to point out that basically it was not meant for neither for Economia nor for the other PROs at that time to actually substitute the role the municipality had in establishing a comprehensive separate collection system, which, as we have heard today, and I'm ready to testify as well, it is still far from being solved. Obviously, in this capacity, we implemented, as other colleagues have done also, or financed multiple local, regional, and national information, education, and awareness campaigns, because obviously the consumer is and should be in the center of our interest, as its response is actually will ensure the success of our endeavors. In a nutshell, about EXPRA, and hopefully you all understand again why my presence being here. Last year we celebrated 10 years of existence. There are more than 33 members and partners at international level, all industry-owned and all non-profit organizations. We have some of our members have at least 30 years of experience in waste management field. We are covering a population of approximately 240 million people with services regarding collection, sorting, and recycling. So, in a nutshell, this is what EXPRA is all about. In a recent exercise that to determine its vision and mission for the next 10 or 20 years, we have determined that we are going to enable sustainable packaging via optimum EPR through 3 major pillars to act as a knowledge exchange hub for our sector, sustainability advocate for our ecosystem, and provide joint EPR services for our members. Our strengths rely, obviously, in representing more than 30 countries, representing more than 30 countries worldwide, having collective industry expertise, which we are willing to share with everybody, and that's, I think, it's very notable. And also important that only non-profit packaging EPR organizations are members of EXPRA. The connection with the closed glass loop is as follows. Among many external activities that EXPRA is currently implementing, being part of various multiple working groups, platforms, projects, EXPRA is also a founding member and the board member of Close the Glass Loop initiative, and this is how I first got to meet the community way back 5 years, and I'm very grateful and honored to meet with you here in Bucharest. EXPRA is committed to continuing its contribution at European level, and then via Economia Ambalajelor in Romania to developing and implementing an action plan for closed glass loop program. EPR, I think it's already a well-known factor that extended producer responsibility has played and will play continuously a major role in ensuring a circular economy. EPR schemes, or producer responsibility organizations, play a pivotal role in this circle with so many important stakeholders, from obviously starting with the producers or importers, the bottlers, the dealers, the ones who are actually financing the system, communicating with the consumer, as I said, played a major role in ensuring its success, concluding contracts with local authorities and their delegated operators, but equally with the other side of the operators, the private operators that you have been just recently mentioned, and also Rosanna has done, that have had and still will have quite an important contribution. The phenomenon that you explained, the acquisition from the population, but we should have in mind that that also comes from an incentive-based system. It's all about money, it's an incentive system. And finally, obviously, signing contracts with recycling installations. All in all, it's important to know that in our vision, the extended producer responsibility should not be just a financial responsibility, but an operational one. Next slide.
I'd like to start with something a little bit cynical, if you don't mind. So we saw 450,000 tons placed on the market for glass, right? Sorin, you just mentioned that you estimate that 30 or 35% of that would be covered by a deposit return system now. But I feel that that might be actually quite low. My feeling is that it would be much higher because there are a lot of beverages. I mean, glass packaging will be, I imagine, a lot going towards beverages. So my cynical question is, if we forget about the packaging that is not beverage when it comes to glass, okay? If we just think beverage, would we be able to achieve 90% glass collection for recycling based only on the material that will be covered by the deposit return system? This is a quick cynical question.
First of all, if I may, just not a correction, but just to make sure that I was clearly understood, I mentioned that maybe 25 to 30% of the entire packaging market is not glass, is going to shift towards the DRS. From what I was able to find out, okay, glass is probably more or less around 300,000, of the 440,000 currently put on the market. So it's 25-30% national.
Which counts for 85 to 9% from total glass.
Okay, so cynically speaking, are we saying that we could drop all the glass packaging that is not beverages and we would still reach our targets?
No, because the rest of the glass should be worked through PROs. And PROs cannot use the glass from DRS. So it will be a very hard job for PROs to collect non-DRS glass and to make up 65% target which is currently in place. Not an easy job.
So this becomes a very challenging question in my mind because we need to assume that the DRS will work on the beverage part of the packaging because of the system that it will create, the financial incentive that people will have to bring back the containers. When it comes to the rest of that material, which is going into food, cosmetics, perfumery, and other non-beverage applications, how are we going to create an investment system that will, make it work, that we will be able to collect that material? And I'm really opening this question to the floor, actually. I'd be curious to hear the views on this, to be honest. Because this challenge is not so much a question of whether or not we get material back into the closed loop, but it's also linked to whether that material ends up. Where does it actually end up? Does it necessarily then end up in landfill? I mean, is that the future for that material? And how can we prevent that from happening? Because having zero landfill, getting as close as possible to zero landfill, should also be a target. So, Roxana, I mean, you pointed out this challenge that you have on creating value out of your municipal waste system. What kind of investments would you be expecting in this area to relieve you from having municipal waste, like real waste in the end?
In order to get the value out of the municipal waste, you need separate collection. So all the investments that we need to do, and we should have done it years ago, is collect separately at source. And I was mentioning some projects happening now in Bucharest, and just to have an overview over how large the investment should be, please keep in mind that one district has estimated that needs over 130,000 containers. Divide this into 5 fractions, and then you will see how many containers has the local authority estimated as needed for glass collection. So those are basically the first investments that need to be done. Then municipality and actually the district mayors, they need to invest in themselves in order to understand that they need to cover this cost for transport, separate transport, for treatment, and these are costs that they were only faced this year for treatment, and now they realize that they are not only paying 200 lei per ton for landfilling and 160 lei for the contribution to the circular economy. They need to pay some extra 450 lei per ton for treatment. In order to cover this cost, they need to go to the inhabitants and announce them that actually the cost of waste management has doubled. So they need to invest into communicating this and accepting that this is something that needs to be done. I guess these are the main challenges for this year and for next year, because this year this treatment contract only starts until all the, I'm actually hoping that it's going to be in place this year as well. But with election, they will find some funding within the municipality. They will cover the cost. But next year, when they are looking at real numbers that they need to cover from somewhere, they need to go and double the fee for population. And that is the challenge. Will all the district mayor do so, or would they continue to do as they are doing now? Collection, landfilling, whatever, and not adding these mandatory processes to the waste stream.
And I look around, so please chip in if you want to add a comment or raise a question. The other challenge that we see is the difference between reported figures and real tonnages actually being recycled, something like that. And maybe that also explains why in our survey graphic, the input materials that we're able to cover in our survey is only 22% of what is declared collected for recycling. Maybe that's because actually there is a difference between real tons and reported tons. I don't know. But obviously we also have a problem there, because if reported tons basically cover the compliance for the targets, whereas actually in terms of real tons there is not a real recycling activity or business, there's also an issue there. Maybe we could also raise a little bit more awareness on real tons, actually. Is that also something that could help to create investment? Because if we're complying with targets, we don't have a massive incentive to invest more. But if we actually demonstrate that we're in reality not complying with targets, maybe we can create more investment. Is that a pathway that could be explored? I don't know if anyone wants to chip in on that. Yes, please.
Well, I think for us, and also for us, important is the reporting. We have perfect reporting. And if you look here with the 68% almost of glass recycling, we are there. I mean, we are exceeding the European target of collection and recycling. What is behind it's all in our practice or in any other state member practice. We don't have a level practice. We don't have we have just the directives. And the way we are measuring it's very different. We are better than Portugal, for example. But here, a Portuguese producer of glass is suffering not having the cullet. The cullet are very scarce in Romania. And the question will be later on, I mean, is all this going into circularity, or we just like to be happy having a very nice paperwork? And one comment from the municipality, really I appreciate very much what Roxana was, you know, how sincere was in putting all this, not easy to come and present this. Bucharest, which is what she was mentioning, 30% is about 30% of all packaging from the municipal waste, all packaging put on the market is in Bucharest. 30%, which means 150,000 tons of glass packaging was put on Bucharest market, not on Romania, but on Bucharest market. And municipality was collecting with 6 municipalities here, 2,000 tons. I mean, what is the percentage? Of course, the rest might be business to business, but this all goes in the reporting, and we really need there to put something, I don't know, digitalization or more, pay more attention. That's why this was the push for DRS, because Romanian authorities, they want to help municipalities, saying you are not able to do it, okay, we industry will assume it and will do it. Let's see. Yeah, the story goes on.
Just to mention, I mean, data is not a Romanian problem. I don't think there's any country that can honestly stand up and say, yeah, we've got our traceability fully on board, even for glass or whatever, you know. I think there's a single country that doesn't have some issues with data and reporting. You talk about this business aspect. Could we just show a visual? Because there's another study that we made at the level of Close the Glass Loop, which was looking at the HoReCa sector, particularly. The HoReCa sector, because we often focus on glass packaging and consumers and households and municipal waste, but it's true that we don't always think in terms of the businesses that are using glass packaging. So if we could just show the visual of HoReCa, please, Christina, so that we can just give a sense. What we estimated at the level of Close the Glass Loop is that pretty much 20% of the glass packaging placed on the market in Europe is placed via the HoReCa channel. So the HoReCa channel weighs about 1/5 of the total amount of glass being placed on the market, which means that it's about 1/5 of the impact when it comes to collection. So that's still sizable. And in our HoReCa study, we also had a view towards each country. And we were able to kind of develop a bit of a scatter plot where we identified priority countries where the HoReCa channel would be particularly important and particularly relevant in order to meet higher glass collection for recycling targets. Now what you will see here is the upside down figures for Romania on HoReCa. So that's an interesting challenge for me. But basically there's one metric that Romania stands out for. It's the tonnage per establishment. Okay. Now, I don't know why. Is it because in Romania you have big HoReCa establishments, or you have very few HoReCa establishments? But basically what we see is that on average, we would estimate that there are 2.82 tons of glass packaging, one way, for recycling, placed in HoReCa establishments. So that HoReCa establishments consume on average 2.82 tons per year, which is actually one of the highest figures that we have per establishment across Europe, and that's why we think it could be a priority area for Romania. I'd be really keen to have your comments on that.
This is what I was thinking about, is the fact that these numbers, those from HoReCa, for example, they don't get to the municipalities reporting in any way. We don't get these numbers. They are already taken out of the municipal waste stream. They are already dealt with. So the numbers we are sharing about municipal waste is the ones that we get from the sanitation companies. The sanitation companies do not get the waste, the products, the glass bottles from HoReCa, because HoReCa has developed their parallel system where they know for sure that this packaging goes to treatment, to the correct treatment, and also they are contributing to achieving the targets as producers. So these numbers should, it's a question, should be added up to the numbers of the municipality and considered as achieved target, Because at this moment, for Bucharest, we are not doing it. When we're talking about recycling glass, the figures that we are using is just the roughly 5,000 tons from the sanitation company and what comes out of sorting. Everything else is EPRs or whatever.
Because the average EU tonnage placed on the market is a little bit less than 20. I think it's around 17 if my memory serves me right. Here in Romania, you're on 23%. So 23%, and this is 2019 data, okay? You see that you're number 2 in EU plus UK on tons per establishment, okay? You're second on the list, so that's an important figure. And you're also 7th in terms of total tons in HoReCa, okay, of glass packaging. So it is an important sector. One actually basic question, moving forwards, is the HoReCa sector part of the deposit return system? And how does that work then for the HoReCa operators? Because this is really key.
To become this question, the very short answer to your question, also this time, is yes, the HoReCa has been included into the DRS system. It comes with a particularity because as part of the DRS system, HoReCa does not accept anti-containers from outside of its premises, so it is just obliged to collect what is being generated within its premises. And then for the rest, it follows the same set of rules where the system administrator has the mandatory obligation to set up in place transportation that will pick up the empties from HoReCa, just as it does for the other retailers, for the groups. That is one of the obligations that falls with the system operator. And then as part of the system, the HoReCa entities also are entitled to receive the deposits that they are paying to their distributors, so that it closes the loop with regards to deposit. And there is a fee that covers their activity in terms of handling the packaging up until the moment when the system administrator is collecting them. And I believe it's important, especially when it comes to the glass, just because you also showed this stat about the amount of glass, of waste glass that is being generated in HoReCa, then that is why it's important that they have been included in the DRS system, because otherwise having the glass as part of the system but not having the main channel of handling this packaging included in that made it quite difficult for the system to meet the targets of collection. And maybe at the same time also looking into quite far away for the time being, but still an option that we do not exclude from the table, because we have a reusable system for glass in HoReCa. Now coming back to the practice of the brewing sector, those reusable bottles that are in circulation are actually titled to the traditional trade and HoReCa, because that's how producers are able to recover their empties and then bring them back into the circulation. So having the HoReCa part of the DRS also makes it possible that in the future, if there is an economically viable option for that, the reusable glass is equally included into the system.
So, operationally speaking, it means that although these packaging are part of the deposit system, it doesn't mean that they necessarily then go into a machine. I mean, all that happens is that there is a dedicated collection system of unbroken bottles for recycling, or is there an expectation that HoReCa establishments would somehow need to store material for a while, and therefore they might need to also kind of break it down? Do you have any ideas? Because obviously there's a logistical connection here that, and also a speed of collection. In HoReCa are like mega households. They consume a lot every day. So will there be a kind of daily collection system for HoReCa systems? Is that something that you're thinking about?
So in terms of breaking glass, it doesn't happen in HoReCa. They are in that sense similar to the manual collection, because manual collection equally does not come back to the packaging, and neither does break the glass. But it does revolve around the idea of putting in place a mechanism of transportation that allows the pickups to happen in a frequent manner, so as not to obviously overload the activity of the HoReCa outlets in in that sense, there is a system being put in place, currently being developed. The tool does this development while still up and running, because we have a very short time frame to make all the developments within the system. So this part, the logistic part, is currently being developed, and it will allow all the retailers, including the HoReCa, when they have their bags full, to fill in the details about their quantities in the application, and then an order for transportation will be issued immediately. There is a time frame, of course, included into the contract between the operators and the outlets to allow for this pickup to happen in an efficient basis. Indeed, because when it comes to HoReCa, there is volumes. The volumes are being generated in glass. Obviously, takes up a lot of volume, also because it's not broken. So this frequency will have to be higher in accordance to the number of containers being emptied for each outlet.
Okay, and just as maybe a question to the waste management side. So I'm getting from Roxana that this is material that you don't really see today. So what is the current situation of material being collected at the level of HoReCa, and how much will it change? Because the incentive system, how will that affect a HoReCa operator? Because, you know, currently, if the material is not going through municipal waste management, I assume that there are already some kind of collection systems in place that have been set up for the HoReCa sector, and therefore how different will the system be moving forwards if there's already some kind of, I guess, privatized collection system? Is it just a change of the operator that will do the collection? Is that the only change? Because I don't see the financial incentive as making a huge difference here for a HoReCa operator if they already have a private collection system in place. Is there any comment on that? Yeah, please go ahead.
I think that we have quite a broad hint on this. In principle, what means that? Pre-DRS, HoReCa was a very good stream that was able to collect glass. Why? Because, as you correctly said, they received subsidies from private collectors for that material, especially for that material, not for PET, not for cans, but glass was very valuable type of package for them to gain some money. Okay? This will not change now because they will work with retour. But the game changer here is the value. They will receive from retour a fee per piece, which, if you count on total, it's way high, much higher than previous game. So HoReCa was and will be a very important channel for acquiring targets. Okay?
Yeah. I'm going very frequent to restaurants here in Romania. And I'm asking always, you know, the owner, what to do with glass, what is happening? They didn't adapt yet, and I will tell you there are 3 or 4 situations they are facing. One, they don't know at all about the system, and they're still putting in a bin saying that the collection company is coming every Monday and they take it and that's fine. And I say, okay, all these are now coins of 10 euro cents. So, are you throwing into the bin? They say that is what we are doing, what should we do? So it's a lack of information for sure there. Second, some of them seeing that they're putting in bags and waiting for the logistic, but they say it's not so much convenient, mostly for the small spaces. They're claiming it's not space to store it. And in this case, either they put in the trunk of the car, and when they do and make a supply, if it's a small restaurant, they go and take it by themselves, and they just, like an individual, they start putting each recipient into the RVM. And the third direction is there is this linkage to the social activity. Like they say, we don't care, for us, you know, anyway, we have our prices in Corega is much higher than the supermarket. So this 10 euro cents we will assume as a cost. And they just give like a bonus to the lady that is cleaning, or someone at the restaurant. They say, okay, you make an additional income, you take always the bottle. So there are several aspects, but it's at the very beginning we are waiting to see a maturization of the system, and of course the reverse logistics should be the best that can happen in the corridor.
Just quickly to add something as well, with regards to this particular channel, and also to respond to Roxana's question earlier before. Because we have a very complex, let's call it like that, legislation framework, it was never a done deal with the political municipal or use an industrial commercial stream. If you ask each party, they would say, one party would say it's definitely municipal 100%, another party would say no, no way, it's industrial commercial. On the one hand. On the second hand, indeed it was a very strong collection channel that PROs have financed with, obviously, the support of the producers via those particular private collectors that actually found their way, because apparently there was not enough interest from the municipal operators in collecting these type of waste, or at least this is what some of them have testified, whether it's true or not to be determined. Now, indeed, the game changer is the value, because there was a value put to this packaging that the private collectors would pay with being funded basically by producers via PROs. And now it's a game changer because of the value of the entire new mechanism in which they would have to enter as part of the DRS. And finally, you should also, I'm referring to our European guests. Today we have a system in Romania, probably not many countries do. It's an online system for reporting traceability of packaging waste, which has been initiated and implemented by the Environmental Fund, which is an organization under the umbrella of the Ministry of Environment. We have just started to actually consider a distinct channel within the industrial commercial umbrella. So for us it was always industrial commercial, but if you ask other operators, they'd say no, it's definitely municipal. And there has been, not just for glass, but an overlap always between the municipal delegated operators by municipalities and the private collectors who are trying to overlap with each other in both of the streams. Hopefully this will, at some point, be clarified.
If I'm putting glass in the market, I'm not on the DRS score, I'm still under the AVR system. If the system is not working, how can I meet the targets? And how come, because my success in the market, I'll have a huge impact by the cost that I have, because I'm putting the package in the market that I cannot have a system that is collecting and bringing back the credits from this packaging that we produce. And so, a major portion of the people who is putting glass in the market is going to be quite happy, because this has a self-sustained system with incentives that has a lot of people working on. But if you are in other kind of business that you are putting jars among the others, you might have an issue, and you might face a huge increase in cost because you cannot justify it, or you cannot get the credits back, because the recycling system for this kind of this flow of materials is not working. And so the second point is more about the comment, because it's we are talking about the record, we are talking about big supermarkets and so on. I always wonder if this 24/7 that we have in the street, very small, where the merchandising is crawling on top of this map. I was just wondering, the guy would be very happy to have a mega image nearby to be able to deposit in the packaging, because otherwise it's going to be incredibly hard for him to manage all this packaging, because they sell a lot of rentals. But this is just a comment, and the first one is more like a question, because I was wondering after the result.
That's our investment, Green Glass Recycling, which was established in 2013 and is part of our recycling group, Green Group. It's having the end of waste qualification, and we are going exclusively for closed loop. Our installed capacity today is 110,000 tons per year, and the question will be, is it enough? Was enough until today, was even exceeding the quantities you can receive it. So the scaling won't be a problem unless you have enough feedstock. So the future is challenging, and we will be there trying to coordinate efforts with the collection systems and also with the consumer, which is here on my left, be a glass, and the other consuming the cullet. Next slide. Yes, the quality we are obtaining in our facility, it's purity of 99.99, okay, according to the standards. We don't have recently claims, we are harmonized very well with the consumer. Everything goes into remelting, and things are stable for the moment. Next slide. Okay. Potential for closed loop. Okay, what's happening? Thank you. We are facing some dramatic changes on the market, and we will discuss about collection, as I say, recycling and production. So downstream, upstream, what we can see in our position in the circle, we see on the left, we see collection, on the right, we see production. What we do is recycling, transforming waste in non-waste. So DRS is becoming, I would say, almost a monopolistic presence in the market. Before, we used to have tens of suppliers and hundreds of municipalities bringing material in the manner they collected. Now we will have a huge quantity which are introduced in DRS, and the collection rate can be boosted to eventually 250, 300,000 tons a year. We don't know, but this is a top potential of, looks like this is a top potential of this collection stream. I was not mentioning here the municipality, because we need to understand what is left over there and what the quantities are and how they are treated in collection. Because we are talking here, I would say that the municipality flow is enriched with other glass, like, we have a glassware that goes together and is very compatible, and we don't have problem. There are other objects made out of glass, and ashtrays, and even artistic works. And we also have some flat glass that sometimes it's entering into the stream. And it's also the stream I was mentioning before, the jars, which are not only the one from the supermarket, but the one people buy empty, and it's quite a quantity in Romania, that people, they are filling with jam, with pickles, as I said, so it's a house production. Recycling has to scale up according to the potential of the in-feed stream. So we have our plan is to grow our capacity to 260,000 tons beginning of next year. And then we look why we do all that. So we have been asking local producer here, could you take more cullet? I say, of course, and easily there is a market for almost 200,000 tons of cullet. So if we look in this, let's say, estimation, we can see there is a lot of potential there, so we can grow really organic. Next slide, please. Well, I think the main scope here, and I want to say that we have been choosing this room because it's having a circle table, which can suggest that we are going towards a circular economy. Let's look in another perspective, the statistic data. Okay, every number there it's disputable because it's based on a lot of paperwork behind, which might not be precise. But recycling rate so far before DRS from municipal solid waste is 13%. So let's assume we have a 13% recycling rate. But why we don't have only 1.3% circularity? European statistics say Romania is on the bottom with a circularity. So recycling without circularity probably is not a very good achievement, and we have to push a lot in increasing a lot the circularity rate to go hand in hand with the recycling rate. We're too far. Means that there are a lot of open loop or questionable solution. And we go now to to the orange ball there. We say glass collection, it's for recycling reported is 68%. But other calculations are saying that only 1/3 of this is going for cullet and 2/3 is going for backfilling, aggregates, some bricks, and which is not the remelting, is not the reusing the glass as its potential as a raw material to remelt and make new products, at least. So you see the big difference may come also from the glass. That's why we're here and what we're trying to shape it. Can we have a map road here how we can increase the glass closed loop? This will increase all the other results in Romania, and of course will be for the satisfaction of the industry, and will come not only with the material but will come with a lot of decarbonization and all the other good things. Well, I'll make it short. It's a call to an action. What I was explaining to the previous slide, I think we have an urgent need to implement a national plan for closing the glass loop. And for that, I thank you, all of you, being together with us. And I believe together in this circle with all stakeholders, we can improve a lot the result in Romania. We just need a guide. Thank you.
Bună ziua! Aș vrea să fac și câteva clarificări, tocmai pentru a nu porni de la cifre greșite, care ne pot duce la soluții ineficiente. În primul rând, aș vrea să mă asigur că toți înțelegem acel procent de 13% care a fost menționat atât de domnul ministru în prezentarea colegului meu Sorin Dumitru și, bineînțeles, în prezentarea domnului Damov. Procentul de 13% ca și realizare se referă la obiectivul autorității locale de deviere de la depozitare a tuturor deșeurilor colectate în area lor de gestionare. Acest obiectiv include deșeurile de ambalaj, deșeul non-ambalaj, reciclabil non-ambalaj și, bineînțeles, biodeșeul. Nu trebuie să plecăm de aici cu sentimentul că, având un 13% în zona autorității locale, acolo vom găsi un potențial fantastic, pentru că procentul de reciclare a deșeurilor, mai ales de ambalaj, inclusiv din zona autorității locale, este mult mai mare. Acesta ar fi una din clarificări. Pe de altă parte, trebuie să vedem, dacă ne referim la închiderea sticlei în sticlă, că lucrurile se întâmplă inevitabil. În ce sens? Trebuie să înțeleg că nu merge traducere. Okay. Nu mai revin asupra acelui 13%. Sper că s-a și auzit explicația mea și s-a și înțeles. Pe de altă parte, dacă ne referim la această discrepanță între sticla colectată și procentul care se închide în sticlă, din cifrele, cred că prezentate de Sorin, reieșea că avem un 85.000 de tone închise în sticlă de către reciclatorii români, 60.000 de tone la export și undeva în jur de 120.000-130.000 de tone chipurile închise în bolțari. Și atunci, normal, pare că procentul de sticlă închisă, reciclată în sticlă, este foarte mic. Trebuie să ne uităm la cel 135.000 care este raportat ca închis în bolțari și cred că putem să ne referim la două cauze. Una ar fi, s-ar putea ca aceste date să fie contaminate, în sensul să fie declarate cantități mai mari închise în sticlă în mod nereal, iar dacă sunt cantități de sticlă colectate care n-au ajuns la facilitățile de reciclare din România, o cauză importantă ar putea să fie inclusiv distanța, pentru că trebuie să ne uităm la România. Sunt 3 reciclatori de sticlă, toți grupați în acest moment în sudul țării. Și știm foarte bine că impactul costului de transport mai ales asupra sticlei, este foarte mare și deja apariția SGR-ului a împins la rezolvarea acestei cauze. Domnul Damov a anunțat o investiție în Ardeal și mai există o investiție anunțată, finalizată probabil luna viitoare în Bacău. Deci partea de acoperire teritorială, trebuie să recunoaștem, datorată apariției SGR, deja s-a rezolvat. Pe de altă parte, în România, împărțirea cantităților de sticlă pe cele două fluxuri, SGR și IPR, duce în mod inevitabil la la obligativitatea celor care se ocupă de atingerea obiectivelor producătorilor prin IPR să găsească noi soluții. Pentru că, într-adevăr, 75% probabil din cantitățile de sticlă introduse pe piață vor fi gestionate de SGR, care a anunțat o creștere graduală a obiectivelor de la 65% în primul an la 90% în 3 ani. Deci deja dacă facem calculul 90% din 75 ne dă o cantitate foarte mare, dar nu trebuie să uităm că celelalte 25%, undeva în jur de 120.000 de tone, rămân în gestionarea OIREP-urilor de sistemului IPR, care vor trebui să găsească noi soluții, pentru că ei au obligația de a recicla 65% din această 100.000 pe care o gestionează și cumulate, cifrele vor duce la un procent de reciclare global pentru România mult mai mare. Și probabil colegul meu Sorin Dumitru, din motive de timp, când a pomenit de soluția găsită de OIREP-uri, aceea de clearing house, eu știu din interior că apariția SGR-ului este considerată o oportunitate tocmai ca ca un moment în care organizațiile, IGR-urile, OIREP-urile să se așeze la masă cu autoritățile publice locale, tocmai ca noile condiții în care încep să dispară o cantitate considerabilă, atât de sticlă, de PET și mai puțin de aluminiu din zona de gestionare acestora, trebuie refăcută atât infrastructura și regândite posibilitățile pentru ca obiectivele, cum spuneam, de sticlă să fie realizate. Pentru că știm foarte bine, în acest moment, obiectivele de reciclare pe sticlă s-au făcut în mare măsură din unități de sticlă. În niciun caz din borcane. Adică procentul de colectare și reciclare din borcan este foarte mic. Dar, cum spuneam, împărțirea și în momentul în care SGR-ul va deveni operațional și eficient, așa cum reiese din cifrele înaintate de GEMA, ceilalți vor fi obligați să găsească soluții. Deci, eu aș vrea totuși să vedem că în România se pleacă de la niște cifre de colectare, reciclare, în niciun caz suficiente, dar în niciun caz dezastruoase și considerăm că în acest moment primii pași pentru creșterea cantităților de reciclare a sticlei în sticlă deja sunt făcuți. Mulțumesc.
Okay, so it's true that there was a slight imbalance, right, between the sound from the microphone and the sound of what we were getting in the headset. I hope I got the main gist. One was questioning the validity of the 13% recycling rate. I think that was the first one. That was a bit of more of a challenge on the data. The second one, if I understand it right, is for glass, maybe in particular, because of the weight of the material, it's even more important to have a strong territorial distribution for the recycling of glass to limit the transport, and that's, I think, you identify that as a challenge for Romania to deal with the transport distances, as I understand it, and maybe the glass collection and recycling value chain will need to think of an answer for that. If I got that right. And the third one is that you basically identify this problem that for food jars, it's even more difficult to have recycled content than beverages, whereas food jars are outside the deposit system and therefore will be part of the EPR system and will need to be dealt with because it's even more challenging to have recycled content in food jars. I think those were the big points.